Good evening, dear students. Welcome to the English Canvas. Today we'll study June Jordan, a remarkable poet, essayist, activist, and educator whose work blends art, politics, and humanity with extraordinary power. June Jordan's poetry and prose illuminate the struggles of black identity, womanhood, race, language, and justice. And her writing remains one of the most fearless voices of resistance and hope in American literature. She believed that poetry was a political act and that the writer's responsibility was to speak truth, expose injustice, and imagine freedom. June Millicent Jordan was born in 9th of July in 1936 in Harlem, New York City, to Jamaican immigrant parents. She grew up in Brooklyn in a working class black family during a time of racial segregation and inequality in the United States. Her father was a postman, strict and disciplined. Her mother worked as a domestic laborer. Jordan's upbringing was marked by both love and conflict. Her father admired her intelligence. Her father admired her intelligence but was also physically and emotionally demanding. These experiences of family tension, migration, and identity later shaped her poetry's emotional honesty and social consciousness. Jordan attended Brooklyn's Midwood High School, then studied at Barnard College, a women's college affiliated with Columbia University. There, she faced the alienation of being one of the few black students, which deepened her awareness of racism and sexism in elite academic spaces. In 1960s, she began teaching, writing, and working with community projects, aligning herself with civil rights, black power, and feminist movements. June Jordan's career can't be separated from her activism. She was an activist, right? So she was a lifelong advocate for civil rights, black liberation, feminism, and women's empowerment, as well as she advocated LGBTQ plus rights. uh, she defined as bisexual. She identified as bisexual, anti-imperialist, and anti-war causes, and language justice, especially the recognition of black English as a legitimate and expressive form of communication. Her writings constantly connected the personal and political, arguing that individual identity is shaped by systems of power, race, gender, and class. So Jordan believed that especially poetry was a form of resistance, not abstracted or isolated, but grounded in daily struggle and the pursuit of love, equality, and liberation. Let's talk about her major works. So, June Jordan was a prolific writer, producing more than 25 books of poetry, essays, and children's literature. Her work ranged from personal lyric poems to fierce political essays. So let's go through her most significant works across genres. The first is poetry collection. So the first is Some Changes, which was published in 1971. It is one of her earliest and most influential collections. It explores black identity, womanhood, love, and political protest. So Jordan writes with both tenderness and rage, balancing personal emotion with social consciousness. Poems like Poem About My Rights, which is in our syllabus as well, and there's another poem, Case in Point. So these poems reveal her commitment to justice and freedom. So this poem about my rights, captures her refusal to be defined by systems of oppression, whether racial, gendered, or political. The second poetry collection is Things That I Do in the Dark. This is a collection of selected poetries and it got published in 1981. Actually, it was written during 1977 to 1979. So, this collection, the second collection, marks a turning point in her career. Her voice becomes more direct, militant, and confessional. It includes poems that speak to sexuality, revolution, and self empowerment. So, Jordan asserts the right to speak as a black woman without apology. So, this is a radical act at a time when mainstream American poetry was still dominated by white male voices, right? The third is Passion, New Poems, and it got published in 1980. So this book is also a poetry collection, and this book combines personal love poems with political protest pieces. So Jordan connects intimacy and activism, showing that love itself can be revolutionary. The fourth is Naming Our Destiny, and it got published in 1989. It's a major collection of her poetry that gathers her work from earlier decades, showing her lyrical style, her political commitment, and her humanistic voices. So this collection includes one of her most famous poem about my rights, which declares her identity and autonomy in the face of racism and sexism. So Jordan's defiant repetition turns personal trauma into a collective anthem of survival, right? And the fifth is Kissing God Goodbye. This is also a collection and it got published in 1997. So, this later work explores spirituality, mortality, and continued fight for justice, right? And it reveals a poet still searching for love and faith amid. So, this later work explores spirituality, mortality, and continued fight for justice. It reveals a poet still searching for love and faith amid political despair. In this collection, her tone becomes reflective and but remains fierce and honest. Right now, we will discuss her essays and prose. So the first is Civil Wars, which are it's a collection of selected essays, and it got published in 1981. So it's a powerful collection of essays addressing race, gender, class, and education. So Jordan connects global issues like war and colonialism to local struggle against poverty and racism. She advocates for grassroots activism and radical love as tools for change, right? So this collection became one of her um, most famous collection, later adopted by activists. And there is a line in this collection, that is, we are the ones we have been waiting for, from Civil Wars. So this line became one of our most quoted phrases and later adopted by activists and the movements around the world. So we are the ones we have been waiting for. So this is very important line for the activist, right? The second is On Call, Political Essays, and it got published in 1985. So further explores her views on international politics, the US government and the intersections of art and activism. Jordan's essays blend personal storytelling with political critique, making her voice both intellectual and accessible. Technical difficulties, African American Notes on the State of Union in 1992. It got published in 1992. So this is a sharp commentary on racism, sexism, and inequality in the late 20th century America. She critiques how institutions like schools, media, and government sustain oppression while calling for reform and community-based resistance. Now we'll discuss her writings about children. So children's and young adult literature. So June Jordan also write for young readers, for kids, believing that education and reimagination are essential for liberation. So the first work is His Own Where. It got published in 1971. It's a young adult novel written in black English. Black English basically एक तरह का डायलेक्ट है, मतलब एक तरह की ऐसी लैंग्वेज है जो कि अफ्रीकन एफ्रो अमेरिकन जो लोग होते हैं वो जो वर्नाकुलर इंग्लिश बोलते थे ना, उसको बोलते थे हम ब्लैक इंग्लिश. So it tells the story of two teenagers finding love and self-respect in an oppressive urban world. So this was one of the first novels to use black English as the main narrative voice. It's a radical statement of linguistic pride. The second is New Life, New Room. It got published in 1975 and children's poetry books that celebrate creativity and diversity. So Jordan worked with major artists and thinkers. She collaborated with architect Buckminster Fuller on urban planning and housing projects, advocating for human-centered city design. She worked with civil rights and feminist activists across movements. Her activism extended into teaching. She taught at SUNY Stony Brook City College of New York and later at UC Berkeley, where she founded the Poetry for People program in 1991, and which empowering young poets to use art as a form of resistance. Right, now we'll discuss the themes in June Jordan's work. So June Jordan's writings are unified by a passionate belief in freedom, equality, and the beauty of human connection. So here are her central recurring themes. The first is race, identity, and justice. So Jordan writes about black experience in America, its history of oppression and resilience. She exposes racism but also celebrates black beauty, language, and survival. So there is a line in her poem that is, I am not wrong, wrong is not my name. So this is very important. You can add these phrases in your answers so that you can get good marks. So I am not wrong, wrong is not my name, and you can use her phrases in your daily conversation. I personally believe that her poetry, the phrases which she has used in her poetry, they are so amazing. They are so, so good. You can use them, one of them, as your in your daily conversation with your colleagues, with your friends, with your classmates, with your teachers. If suppose if someone is saying you are wrong, so you can give them a reply that I am not wrong, wrong is not my name. तो कितना अच्छा इम्प्रेशन पड़ता है कि हाँ, ये जो स्टूडेंट है ये लिटरेचर का है, एंड लिटरेचर रिफ्लेक्ट्स इन हिज और हर conversation as well, in her behavior, in his behavior as well, right? So चलिए आगे पढ़ते हैं. So her work rejects victimhood and claims power through pride and self-love, right? Second is feminism and womanhood. So Jordan's feminism, it's intersectional, which embrace race, class, and sexuality, right? She challenges both patriarchal oppression and white feminism that excluded women of color, right? So her poem celebrates the strength and vulnerability of women and affirm the body as a site of power, not for shame, right? The third is language and voice. So she believed that black English, often stigmatized, was a legitimate and poetic medium. Her defense of linguistic freedom connects to her political vision, the right of people to speak in their own authentic voices. So there's one more phrase in her poetry, that is, none of us can be free until we can all talk freely. This is very important as well. Love as resistance. So for June Jordan, Love was not a private feeling but a political force, a form of resistance to hatred, to violence, and alienation as well. So her work insists that tenderness and justice are inseparable. And there's a phrase through from her poetry that which I have already explained in this class, that this line is very important, and the activist, they have adopted this line for their protest. We are the ones and we have been waiting for, right? So let's talk about her activism. So her activism extended beyond America. She wrote about Palestine, South Africa, and global struggles for liberation. She envisioned a world where humanity transcends race, nationality, and gender, right? The fifth is education and empowerment. So through her teaching, especially the poetry for the people, she promoted poetry as the collective democratic act, a way for marginalized voices to reclaim agency and truth, right? Now let's talk about her literary style. So her literary style is bold, rhythmic, political, and deeply personal, right? She blends spoken language with lyrical grace and political anger with tenderness. And look at her, her stylistic features. The first is oral and rhythmic language. So her poetry draws from black oral traditions, that is jazz, blues, and everyday speech. So this gives her a work. This gives her work a strong rhythmic pulse and spoken word energy, making it accessible and powerful. Right. The second is direct and conversational tone. So Jordan avoids academic complexity. Her writing speaks directly to the reader. It's in a conversational tone, right? So even when discussing serious political issues, her voice remains intimate, confessional, and urgent, right? Code switching and the use of black English. So Jordan incorporates African American vernacular English, right, to affirm cultural identity and defy linguistic hierarchy. In his own fair where there's this is actually children's and young adult literature in his own way. So in this literature, she uses black English throughout, through this work that celebrates language as liberation, right? Now the fourth writing style is mixture of personal and political. So her poems often begin from a personal experience, which are love, family, and daily life, and expand into political commentary. So this merging of the intimate and revolutionary is her stylistic hallmark, right? Imagery and emotions. Her images are so sharp, sensory, and passionate. She combines emotion with clarity. Even when confronting violence or racism, her tone carries compassion and resilience, right? Repetition and rhythm. So, like a chant or a song, her poetry uses repetition for emphasis, turning pain into music, and protest into prayers. Now, we can talk about her legacy, her influence. So June Jordan's influence extends far beyond literature. She inspired generations of writers, activists, and students to believe in the power of language to transform society. There is a poem which is written by her, Poetry for the People. This is a program at UC Berkeley at UC Berkeley, which remains a model for community-based writing education. Writers such as Audre Lorde, Alice Walker, Bell Hook, Claudia Rankine share her legacy of merging poetry with activism. So she remains one of the clearest voices of intersectional feminism and black liberation. And she died in 2002 at the age of 65 after a long battle with cancer, but she still writes, still teach she continues her writing, her teaching, and still believing in hope, right? So to study June Jordan is to study the inseparable link between poetry and politics, between love and liberation. Her voice is at once personal and universal, challenging injustice while celebrating humanity. Through her poems and essays, she teaches that words are not ornaments but weapons of truth, right? Capable of healing, protesting, and transforming the world. So poetry means taking control of the language of your life. She once said that. So Jordan's life and works stands as a testament to the enduring power of art, to fight, to heal, to imagine a better world, right? So now we'll read the poem which is in our syllabus, poem about my rights. So before reading this poem line by line, we need to discuss her poetic philosophy. June Jordan's poetry is guided by a few consistent beliefs. The first is you can write, I am dictating, so you can write poetry as a tool of liberation. मैं लिख देती हूँ यहाँ पर, poetry as a tool of liberation. So, for Jordan, poetry is not an escape from reality, it's a means of confronting it. She saw poetry as a public language that can unite communities and give voice to the silenced, right? So, so this is all about that is yes. So for her, poetry can give voice to the silenced. The second point is, we need to remove this as well. Personal is political. So Jordan's poems blurs the line between private emotion and social commentary. Her experiences as a black woman, a daughter, a lover, an activist are inseparable from the world's injustices. Through her own story, the she speaks for entire communities. For example, in this poem, she transforms personal violation into collective empowerment. And the very famous line, I am not wrong, wrong in, is not my name. This is this poem contains the line, right? The second point is the power of language. So June Jordan believed that language is political. The way people speak reflects power, identity, and belonging. She championed the use of Black English, which is African American vernacular English, in literature, defending it as a language of beauty and resistance. So this linguistic activism made her one of the pioneer of a language justice in American poetry. So कुछ मेजर करेक्टरिस्टिक्स है इनकी पोइट्री में जो कि हमें थोड़ा समझना चाहिए इस पोएम को पढ़ने से पहले. सो द फर्स्ट इज़ फ्यूजन ऑफ लव एंड पॉलिटिक्स, क्योंकि इनकी पोएम और इनका जो पॉलिटिक्स है वो साथ साथ चलता है. सो हर पोएम्स ऑफन मिक्स इंटीमेट इमोशंस विद पब्लिक प्रोटेस्ट विच शोज दैट लव, एम्पैथी एंड जस्टिस आर इंटरकनेक्टेड. वेदर शी राइट्स अबाउट racial violence or romantic desires, her ultimate subject is the human capacity for the love is the face of oppression, right? She used direct and accessible language. Her poetry avoids elitism. Elitism नहीं है इनकी poetry में. She writes in plain, rhythmic, conversational English, often inspired by the oral tradition of black speeches, jazz, song. Her tone is immediate, intimate, and alive, and she wants the reader to feel the words, not just analyze them, right? And she has emphasis on community and resistance. Her recurring subjects include racism and violence, gender oppression, economic injustice, colonialism and war, and the power of collective struggle. So her poems move from personal grief to collective hope, turning sorrow into strength. So her poems is a celebration of the self. Even when she writes about pain, June Jordan's poetry radiates self-respect, pride, and resilience. Her speakers are not victims; they are actually survivors. They are teachers and they are revolutionaries, right? सो इनकी जो पोएम है उसमें जो टोन, मतलब पोएम और में जो टोन और स्टाइल है, अगर हम उसकी बात करें तो टोन तो काफ़ी ऑनेस्ट, अर्जेंट, इमोशनल और रेवोल्यूशनरी होता है, ठीक है। लाइक इट चैलेंजेस साइलेंस एंड डिमांड जस्टिस। लैंग्वेज बहुत ही सिंपल होती है, लीड नहीं होती है, रिदमिक होती है, और ये ब्लैक इंग्लिश भी यूज़ करती हैं। एंड दिस लैंग्वेज कनेक्ट्स टू ओरल एंड म्यूज़िकल ट्रेडिशन, राइट। इमेजरी यहाँ पर फिजिकल है, इमोशनल है, पॉलिटिकल है, राइट। और स्ट्रक्चर जो है वो फ्री वर्स है, रिपीटेशन है, डायरेक्ट एड्रेस भी है, एंड गिव्स हर पोइट्री अ स्पोकन वर्ड क्वालिटी, राइट। अगर हम बात करें इनकी पोइट्री की थीम्स की, तो उनके थीम्स है रेस, जेंडर, फ्रीडम, लव, सॉलिडरी दैट ब्लेंड्स पर्सनल पेन विद सोशल प्रोटेस्ट, राइट। सो इनकी जो पोइट्री है वो काफ़ी इन्फ्लुएंसिव है। हर पोइट्री पेव द वे ऑफ फॉर लेटर जनरेशन्स ऑफ पोइट्स एंड स्पोकन आर्टिस्ट सच एज ऑड्रे लॉर्ड, निक्की गियोवनी, बेल हुक, Claudia Rankine, Virgin Shire, and the contemporary performers in black, feminist, and queer poetry circles. So her work influences influenced the rise of slam poetry and spoken word movements, which share her belief that poetry belongs to the people, not just to academia. So, her poetry emerges from a profound sense of justice, empathy, and freedom. Her poems speak to the unheard and the unseen, giving voice to pain, love, resistance, and hope. She teaches that the poet's duty is not only to describe the world but to transform it through truth and imagination, right? सो चलिए पढ़ते हैं पोएम को, जो कि हमारे सिलेबस में है लाइन बाय लाइन, और कोशिश करते हैं कि हम इनकी पोएम का डीप मीनिंग समझें। और वैसे तो पोएम की लैंग्वेज बहुत ही ईजी है, हम लेकिन पोएट जो एक्चुअल मैसेज दे रहे हैं इस पोएम के थ्रू, ये हम तक पहुँचे, ये हमारी कोशिश रहेगी। सो दिस poem about my rights is a confessional protest where the poet explores how her identity as a woman, as black, and as human is criminalized by society. It's emotional, raw, political, which expose the violence of patriarchy, racism, and imperialism. So let's read the poem. Even tonight, and I need to take a walk and clear my head about this poem, about why I can't go out without changing my clothes, my shoes, my body posture, my gender identity, my age. So the first four lines of the poem, in this the speaker begins conversationally. Even tonight, she starts with even tonight. That the problem she faces is not new. मतलब जो भी उसको प्रॉब्लम है वो पहले की है. The problem she faces is not new. It happens all the time. She wants to take a walk, right? I need to take a walk. It means she wants to take a walk and think clearly. It's a simple human act, but immediately list all the things she must change just to go outside safely. My head about this poem, about why I can't go out without changing my clothes. वो कह रही है कि मैं मतलब बिना अपने कपड़े बदले बाहर क्यों नहीं जा सकती, मेरा बिना शूज़ बदले, माई बॉडी पोस्चर, मतलब इस सब को बिना बदले, विदाउट चेंजिंग इट, आई कांट गो आउटसाइड सेफली. So she list all the things she must change just to go outside safely. So she must alter her clothes, shoes, posture, even her gender identity and apparent age, implying that being herself is dangerous. So, society forces women to modify themselves for safety. A woman's body is not free, it's policed and judged. June Jordan exposes how female identity itself is politicized and restricted. Right? आगे पढ़ते हैं. My status as a woman alone in the evening, alone on the streets, alone not being the point that being I that I can't do what I want. So there's a repetition of alone, woman alone in the evening, alone on the streets, alone not being the point. So there's a repetition of alone that emphasizes isolation and fear. And she says, being alone, right? Alone not being the point. So being alone is not the problem. Okay, Ricky, alone not being the point. It means being alone is not the problem. The problem is that society want her let be free while alone. So this poem shifts from personal to the political. देखिए मैंने यही बोला था ना आपको कि पर्सनल इंटीमेशन है इनकी पोइट्री में, लेकिन इंस्टेंटली जो इनका जो थीम रहता है वो पॉलिटिकल हो जाता है. तो the poem shifts from the personal to the political. Her status as a woman restricts her autonomy, and the point is not her solitude but the social control over her body and movement, right? To do with my own body because I am the wrong sex, the wrong age, the wrong skin, and suppose it was here in the city but down on the beach. So ये कहती है, here she again lists the identity used against her, which are wrong sex, wrong gender, wrong age, wrong skin, and all the categories of exclusion. The wrong refers to systematic discrimination based on gender, race, and age. Then she imagines if she were somewhere which is peaceful, मतलब एक ऐसी शहर में होती हो जहाँ पर शांति होती, डाउन ऑन द बीच, बट स्टिल these conditions would follow her. So oppression is universal if it follows her everywhere, not just in urban danger but even in nature and solitude, or far into the woods. And I wanted to go there by myself, thinking about God or thinking about children or thinking about the world, all of it disclosed by the stars and the silence. So she imagines escaping into the woods to reflect on God, children, or the universe. But even this act of peace is denied to her. Her thought process is fragmented by fear. Even her spiritual freedom is limited. So it means a woman can't even think freely without fearing of being violated. The poem links spiritual imprisonment with physical oppression. Her very mind is colonized by fear. I couldn't go, I could not go, and I could not think, and I could not stay there alone as I need to be. So there is a repetition of I could not, I could not, I could not, I could not. Three times it's repeating, and it builds a rhythm of frustration and confinement. Even being alone, which she needs for self reflection, but becomes impossible. So it means that she exposes how patriarchal violence denies women the right to solitude, safety, and freedom of thought. Every space, whether it is public or private, becomes dangerous for her, right? As I need to be alone because I can't do what I want to do with my own body, and who in the hell set things up like this. So this is a turning point. She directly questions the system. Who made the rules? बोली ना वो कि मतलब I need to be alone because I can't do what I want to do with my own body, and who is the hell sets things up. It means she questions the system. She directly questions the system. Who made the rules? Who benefits from them? ये जो रूल बनाए हैं इनका फ़ायदा क्या है, किसको फ़ायदा होता है इससे? So her tone shifts from reflection to anger and rebellion. She recognizes that her body is not her own, right? Because society, law, and culture have claimed authority over it. So Jordan attacks the social structure, which are patriarchal, racist, colonial, that determine who gets freedom and who does not, right? And in France, they say if the guy is penetrates but does not ejaculate, then he did not rape me. So she refers to a real legal absurdity. Certain rape laws define penetration without ejaculation as not rape. So it means that Jordan exposes how laws themselves protect perpetrators instead of victims. It's not just individuals who are violent, the system is violent. So this shows how women's pains is reduced to technical definition, erasing real trauma, right? And it after stabbing him, if the screams, if after begging the bastard, and if even after smashing a hammer to his head, if even after, there's a repetition of if even after, if even after that, if he and his buddies fuck me after that, then I consented and there was no rape, because finally you understand, finally. So there's a repetition of if after that dramatizes her horror and rage. She lists the acts of resistance: stabbing, screaming, begging, hitting, but the law still calls it consent. This section is almost unbearable in its honesty. She knows the total corruption of justice, where even resistance is redefined as consent. So, here it means that Jordan reveals the psychological and legal violence faced by women. No matter how much they fight back, they are told it's their fault. It's their fault. Society insists they were wrong, right? They fucked me over because I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong. I was wrong. Again, to be me, being me, where I was wrong, where I was wrong, to be who am I. So there is a repetition of wrong. ये हर स्टेंजा में, हर लाइन में कुछ ना कुछ ये रिपीट हो ही रहा है. सो दिस इज़ द poem's most haunting refrain. She declares that society defines her existence as wrong, wrong gender, wrong race, wrong identity. So the repetition becomes a cry of defiance and irony. She is not actually wrong, but it she is labeled as wrong by oppressive systems. The phrase being me where I was, being me where I was, it shows that even being herself in public space is seen as a violation, right? Which is exactly like South Africa penetrating into Namibia penetrating into. So these two lines is very important. Here Jordan shifts from personal violation to political colonization. She compares rape to imperialism when one nation invades another. So she compares rape to imperialism. Wow. So both acts, which are sexual assault and colonialism, they are about power, domination, and control. Her body becomes a metaphor for colonized nations. Her resistance parallels the global struggle for freedom. So, here we have seen that this poem transforms a personal trauma into collective political protest. June Jordan speaks not just as one woman but as a voice of all those oppressed by patriarchal, racial, and imperial system. Right? चलिए आगे पढ़ते हैं. Angola, and does that mean, I mean, how do you know if Pretoria ejaculates? What will the evidence look like? The proof of the monster jackpot ejaculation on Blackland. So here Jordan extends her earlier metaphor, she was comparing rape to colonial invasion. Rape is a sexual violence. How can someone, compare rape to colonial invasion. Angola and Pretoria, they refer to African nation that and the apartheid regime of South Africa, which was then dominating neighboring countries, and jackboot ejaculation. This is the image of soldiers' boots, and the male ejaculation merges sexual violence with political conquest. So she is drawing a parallel between the rape of a woman and the colonization of Africa. Just as men claim it was not rape, imperial power claims their invasion or civilization or development. So both acts are domination disguised as legitimacy. Next are, and if after Namibia, and it after Angola, and if after and if after all my kinsmen and women resist, even to self-immolation of the villages, and if after that we lose, nevertheless, what will the big boys say? Will they claim my consent? So here Jordan lists African countries. African countries are Namibia, Angola, Zimbabwe, that fought for liberation from colonial and apartheid forces. She imagines these nations resisting heroically, even to self immolation, burning themselves into protest but still losing. Then she asks bitterly, will they will they claim my consent? Right? Will they claim my consent? So this question echoes the earlier section about rape. She equates colonial conquest with rape of nations, and the big boys, western powers, with rapists who later claim the victim wanted it. So the victim wanted it, they are saying that. It's a cutting critique of imperial hypocrisy, how global power justify exploitation by pretending it was mutual and beneficial. Right? Do you follow me? We are the wrong people of the wrong skin on the wrong continent. And what in the hell is everybody being reasonable about? So, this is a direct and almost conversational address to the reader. Do you follow me? So, do you follow me? It's urgent and rhetorical. She defines we. She defines we, the oppressed, as those who are constantly told they are wrong people, wrong color, wrong place. Then she asks a defiant question: why is everyone being so reasonable? In the what is the hell is everybody being reasonable about? So she's asking, why is everyone being so reasonable? So Jordan condemns that the world's passivity in the face of injustice, being reasonable, polite, patient, moderate, is a form of complicity. Her tone becomes revolutionary. She calls for outrage, not calm acceptance. And according to the Times this week, back in 1966, the CIA decided that they had this problem, and the problem was a man named Nkrumah. नहीं आती इसकी pronunciation. Sorry for this. And so they killed him before it was Patrice Lumumba. So now she connects the poem to real historical events. There's a man, Nkrumah. He was the first president of Ghana overthrown with CIA involvement, and Patrice Lumumba. He is the first Prime Minister of Congo, assassinated in 1961 with Western complicity. So Jordan shows that colonial violence did not end with independence. It continued through neo-colonialism, with the Western government Western governments eliminating African readers who resisted imperial control. The problem The problem for CIA was not these men's corruption, but their independence was black power. So the language, the CIA decided that they had this problem. So this mimics bureaucratic understatement, highlighting the coldness of political murder. And before that, it was my father on the campus of my Ivy League school, and my father afraid to talk into cafeteria because he said he was wrong, the wrong age, the wrong skin, the uh, wrong gender identity, and he was paying my tuition. And before that, so this poem, so the poem suddenly shifts from international politics to personal history, from Africa to her own father. Now she is talking about her father's fear of entering a cafeteria at her Ivy League school, that was in Bernard, Columbia, reveals internalized racism and shame. Even though he was paying her tuition, he felt like he didn't belong because of his race and class. So it means that actually it shows how oppression becomes psychological. It's not just external systems, it seeps into families and self perception. Her father becomes a symbol of black assimilation and inherited fear, a man trained to see himself as wrong. Right? Now the next lines are, it was my father saying I was wrong, saying that I should have been a boy because he wanted one, a boy, and that I should have been lighter skinned, and that I should have had straighter hair, and that I should not be so boy, but instead I should just be one, a boy. And before that, this is very important, here the poet moves deeper into personal and generational pain. Her father, internalizing social prejudice, tells her she was wrong to be a girl, dark skinned and natural hair. He equates worth with masculinity and whiteness and conformity. Even her love, sexuality are condemned. She has told not to like boys, but to be one. So June Jordan exposes how patriarchal and racial hierarchies are reproduced within families. Her father, himself a victim of racism, and passes down the same oppression to his daughter. It's a cycle where the oppressors, oppressed becomes the oppressors because they have absorbed society's definition of wrongness. Now she will talk about her mother. It was my mother pleading plastic surgery for my nose and braces for my teeth, and telling me to let the books loose to them, loose to let them loose, in other words. So now the criticism turns toward her mother, who urges her to change her appearance and intellect. So plastic surgery for my nose and braces for my teeth, that reflects her desire to conform to white beauty standards. Let the books loose, it means stop studying. Let the book loose का मतलब है पढ़ना बंद करो, stop being intellectual or independent. So even her mother, motivated by love, reinforces society's oppressive ideals. So the message is, to survive you must shrink yourself, right? This shows how social control invades even maternal love. I am very familiar with the problems of the CIA and the problems of South Africa and the problems of Exxon Corporation and the problems of white American in general and the problems of the teachers and the preachers, that the FBI and the social workers, with my particular mom and dad. I am very, so this is one of the poem's most brilliant and ironic conclusion to this section. She lists all the agents of oppression. CIA basically एक political control है, साउथ अफ्रीका अपार्थाइड है, एक्सॉन जो है वो कैपिटलिस्ट एक्सप्लॉयटेशन है, एंड देन टीचर्स, preachers FBI, social workers. So these are the institutions of authority. And finally represents her own parents, right? So by placing her family in the same list as imperialist system, she makes a shocking but profoundly statement. Oppression exists everywhere, from global power down to private homes, right? So it means she is saying, I know all your problems because they are all point to the same sickness, the belief that my existence is wrong. Her tone mixes bitterness and clarity, and the personal and political merge completely. The private is political, right? Now the next lines are, familiar with the problems because the problems turn out to be me. So the speaker says she is familiar with the problems. She has been analyzing political systems, family, and society. Now she realized that all these problems point to her. She is seen as a problem. So this line captures the psychological violence of oppression. Society denies marginalized people, women, black people, and the poor as the cause of problem, not the victim of them. Her tone is bitter but clear. I am not the problem, but they have made me the problem. It's a moment of devastating recognition, the internalization of centuries of blame, right? I am the history of rape. I am the history of the rejection of who I am. I am the history of terrorizing in incarceration of myself. So here she repeats, I am the history, three times. So it's turning her individuality experience into collective memory. She is not only one woman, she carries the entire history of sexual, racial, and cultural violence. So, history of rape, its literal and metaphorical physical assault and national conquest, rejection of who I am, that is racism and sexism forcing people to hate their own identity, and terrorize incarceration of myself, that defines that she has internalized fear policing her own behavior to survival. So it means she becomes a living embodiment of oppression's history, yet by naming it, she also begins to reclaim power. She refuses silence, right? I am the history of battery, assault, and limitless armies against whatever I want to do with my mind and my body and my soul. And so there's a repetition of I am. This poem isn't free verse and there's no rhythm actually, but there's a repetition of words that makes a rhythm. So there's a repetition of I am, right? I am the history, I am the history. So that building rhythms and intensity, she describes limitless armies attacking her freedom of thought, body, and spirit. The armies here, armies are symbolic. Patriarchal laws, racist systems, governments and religions and moral codes. So every institution becomes an army enforcing control. This line shows total invasion, not only physical but intellectual and spiritual colonization. Whether it's about walking out at night, or whether it's about the love that I feel for, whether it's about the sanctity of my vagina, or the sanctity of my national boundaries, or the sanctity of my leaders, or the sanctity of each and every desire. So she lists multiple kinds of sanctity here. Yes, multiple sanctity. So these sanctity are personal, sexual, and political. The word sanctity means sacredness, but here it is used ironically. वैसे तो जो literal meaning है sanctity का वो है sacredness, but यहाँ पर it's used ironically. Sanctity of my vagina, इसका मतलब है female body controlled by moral and religious codes. Sanctity of my national boundaries, इसका मतलब है nations controlling freedom of movement, कि भाई आप दूसरे देश में easily नहीं जा सकते. So it's controlling freedom of movement. Sanctity of uh, leaders, इसका मतलब है unquestioned political authority. So the poem fuses feminism and anti-imperialism. Both her body and her homeland and are terrorized, invaded and regulated by power. So Jordan exposes how the language of purity and sanctity justifies domination, right? Of each and every desire that I know my from my personal and idiosyncratic and indisputably single and singular heart. So she inserts in the individuality of her desires, which are personal, unique, and singular. Every wish she has is authentic, not a rebellion but a human right. So by emphasizing her single and singular heart, she reclaims her humanity. She is not a category, not an identity label. She is not she is an individual with the right to feel, love, think, and exist freely. I have been raped because I have been wrong, the wrong sex, the wrong age. So, this is one of the most direct and painful declaration of in the poem. She repeats the word wrong, echoing the earlier sections as well, but now it carries full weight. She has been violated not for what she did but for who she is. So rape becomes the ultimate metaphor for systematic oppression. It's not an individual act of violence, it's an expression of culture that treats certain bodies as undeserving of safety and autonomy. The wrong skin, the wrong nose, the wrong hair, the wrong need, the wrong dream, the wrong geographic, the wrong sartorial eye. फिर से देखिए repetition है wrong का. So she lists the countless ways society finds her wrong. Appearance, desire, location, even clothing. तो sartorial का मतलब यहाँ पर होता है dress, मतलब wrong dress. तो appearance, इसकी नोज़ रॉन्ग है मतलब स्किन रॉन्ग है, यानी कि इसकी अपीयरेंस रॉन्ग है, मतलब नोज़ और स्किन रॉन्ग है. हेयर भी रॉन्ग है तो अपीयरेंस रॉन्ग है. नीड भी रॉन्ग है और इसके ड्रीम भी रॉन्ग है. जियोग्राफिक भी रॉन्ग है, मतलब इसकी लोकेशन भी रॉन्ग है. इन द रॉन्ग सेरेटोरियल, मतलब उसकी ड्रेसिंग यानी कि उसके क्लोथिंग भी रॉन्ग है. सो द सेंटेंस ब्रेक्स विद आई. अब ये देखिए सेंटेंस आई पर ख़त्म हुआ है. यूजुअली आई पर शुरू होता है लेकिन ये ख़त्म हुआ है. एज इफ हर आइडेंटिटी इट सेल्फ इज इंटरप्टेड. द पॉज दैट फ्रेगमेंटेशन मिरर्स हाउ सोसाइटी fractures her wholeness, right? So it means oppression operates by naming difference as defect. She shows how every aspect of her being, race, gender, body, language, has been judged and punished, right? I have been the meaning of rape. I have been the problem everyone seeks to eliminate by forced. So this is one of the poem's central insights. She says she has become the meaning of rape. Society defines her very identity as something to be dominated. Her existence itself provokes violence, right? So the problem everyone seeks to eliminate, marginalized people are not just oppressed, they're treated mistakes and that must be corrected or erased. So Jordan links patriarchy, racism, colonialism through the same logic. They all seek to erase the other, to conquer what they don't understand, right? Penetration with or without the evidence of slime, and but let this be unmistakable, this poem is not consent, I do not consent. So this line mirrors the first section's discussion of rape, laws and consent. Now she makes her final political statement. Her writing, her voice is not submission, it's resistance. She refuses to let her poetry be misread as acceptance of victimhood. So she redefines poetry itself as an act of defiance. This poem becomes her testimony, trial, and verdict. So, to my mother and to my father, to my mother, to my father, to the teachers, to my mother, to my father, to the teachers, to the FBI, to South Africa, to Bedford State, to Park Avenue, to American Airlines, to the hardened idols on the corner, to the sneaky creeps in cars. So, this is a catalog of oppressors from global institutions to local predators. Her parents represents, सबसे उसने पहले बोला ना पेरेंट्स को, to my mother, to my father, to parents. So her parents represent family pressure. Teachers and FBI stands for authority and surveillance. South Africa is apartheid regime. Bedford, a poor black neighborhood in Brooklyn. Park Avenue, symbol of rich and white privilege. American Airlines that cooperates. American Western expansion. Idols and creeps, they everyday street harassment. So every layer of society, personal and local, global, personal, local, global and national, participate in defining and policing her existence. So this long list become a litany of accusation holding the world accountable. This is the very famous line which I was talking about. I am not wrong, wrong is not my name. So this is poem's climax. The movement, the moment is absolute defiance. After being called wrong in every way, she rejects the label. She reclaims her identity, declaring what is wrong, my name. So it's a reversal of power. She refuses shame and redefines herself as rightful, worthy, and sovereign. It's a spiritual rebirth, the moment when the victim becomes the author of her own society, right? My name is my own, my own, my own. So this is a repetition of mantra like echoing freedom chants and information. She takes back her selfhood, name, identity, body, and story all belong to her. So naming is power. In reclaiming her name, she reclaims agency and dignity. This is a poetic equivalent of emancipation. I can't tell you who the hell set things up like this, but I can tell you that from now on my resistance, my simple and daily nightly self determination may very well cost you your life. So this is the last stanza of the poem. The poem ends with a warning, not a plea. She admits she doesn't know who started the system of oppression, who has made the rules actually. They are too vast and too old. But she declares resistance every act of daily determination, walking freely, speaking truth, loving openly is now an act of rebellion. Right? So Jordan's final tone is revolutionary and prophetic. She transforms from victim to warrior, turning her identity into weapon of justice. Her resistance is not violent, it's the unstoppable power of selfhood, truth and bravery, right? So in this final section, June Jordan transforms her personal pain into collective empowerment. She redefines poetry as an act of naming, resisting, and claiming. Every word becomes the declaration of survival, and she teaches that freedom begins in the body, in rejecting the lies told about it, and the act of self definition is the ultimate rebellion. So this ending is not despair, it's rebirth. It's a moment where silence ends and the resistance begins. So चलिए, ये तो थी यहाँ तक पोयम. अब पढ़ते हैं प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चंस को, उनकी आंसर राइटिंग स्ट्रेटेजी को. जैसे कि हमेशा से मैं कहती हूँ कि क्वेश्चन बहुत सारे थे, बट आई हैव चोज़न ओनली 4 क्वेश्चन जिनको मुझे अच्छे लगे. तो चलिए, पहला क्वेश्चन है, हाउ डज जून जॉर्डन्स पोएम अबाउट माई राइट चैलेंज एस्टेब्लिश कन्वेंशन थ्रू its structure and the use of punctuation. So this question tests your understanding of the form and style of the poem, how June Jordan's way of writing itself becomes a political act. It's about how she writes, not only what she says. So यहाँ पर कुछ की पॉइंट्स है जो आपको ऐड करनी चाहिए इस आंसर में. So the first point is free verse and the rejection of traditional structure. The poem breaks away from traditional poetic forms, no rhyme, no meter. As we have seen that in the poem there is no rhyme, no meter, no stanzic order. So the poem breaks away the traditional poetic forms. This deliberate chaos mirrors the oppression and fragmentation she describes. The lack of formal structure itself is rebellion against poetic and social order. Second point is stream of conscious technique. So Jordan uses long, unbroken lines and run-on sentences. This gives the poem a breathless, urgent rhythm, reflecting her emotional intensity and political anger. It mimics a voice breaking through silence, refusing to be contained. Third is minimal and or no punctuation. So absence of commas and periods shows fluidity and continuity. Her thoughts can't be controlled by neatly punctuated. So the lack of punctuation also symbolizes the lack of punctuation symbolizes resistance to censorship or control, especially of women's voice. Fourth is conversational or oral style. So the poem's tone is direct, spoken, and rhythmic, closer to speech or protest chant than formal poetry. It carries the energy of black oral tradition and spoken word performance. Fifth is political function of form. So the structure enacts freedom through form. Jordan refuses the rules of both literature and patriarchy. So the itself says, I will not obey your grammar, your laws, and your expectations. So to conclude your answer, you need to conclude all these points. Jordan's form and lack of punctuation are not stylistic accidents, they are acts of resistance. Her structures mirrors the poem's theme, breaking confinement to reclaim voice, body and identity, right? चलिए सेकेंड क्वेश्चन पर चलते हैं. जून मिलिसेंट जॉर्डन्स पोएम अबाउट माई राइट is a powerful examination of the intersectional vulnerabilities of gender oppression and race discussed. So this is a thematic and critical question. You must show how June Jordan's poem represents that intersectionality of oppression, how race, gender and class overlap to shape violence and marginalization. अब कुछ की पॉइंट्स हैं, मैं यहाँ लिख रही हूँ, आपको ये अपने आंसर में इंक्लूड करना ही चाहिए. So the first point is intersectionality defined. So this term intersectionality coined later by Kimberly Crenshaw. The concept means multiple identities intersect to create unique forms of oppression. So Jordan's poem already practices this idea before it was formally named. This is very unique about her poetry. The second point is the female body and the race. So the speaker can't talk freely because she is the wrong sex, wrong skin, and the wrong age, and her experience of violence is shaped not only by patriarchy but also by racism. The third is global and personal oppression. So Jordan connects her personal violation with colonial violence in Africa, which are South Africa, Namibia, Angola, Zimbabwe. This linking of rape and imperialism shows how bodies and nations are both sides of conquest. The fourth is family and internalized racism. So her father's and mother's expectations, wanting her lighter skinned, straighter hair or male, reveal how racism and patriarchy operate even inside homes. The fifth is language and power. So even her speech and name are political. Society defines her as wrong, but she reclaims language as power. And there's a line in the poem, wrong is not my name is own. So sixth is empowerment and resistance. So despite oppression, the poem ends with defiance. Her self determination is revolutionary. She asserts autonomy over her body, identity, and history, transforming vulnerability and strength. So, to conclude your answer, you can use these points, and you can write poem about my rights portrays intersectional oppression not as a theory but as a lived experience. Jordan explores Jordan exposes how race and gender intertwine to criminalize identity, and how voice and poetry becomes act of survival. Right? Question number 3. Discuss the motive of the body as a site of struggle and resistance in poem about my rights. So this question is about the body, not just physical but political, emotional, and symbolic. So in this poem, the body becomes a battlefield between control and freedom. So here are some of the points. We need to use it to write a good answer. So the first point is body as control space. So this poem begins with her inability to walk freely at night. Her body is constantly policed by laws, danger, and judgment. Her body is wrong, criminalized for its sex, color, and visibility. Body as the site of violence. So Jordan links rape with imperial domination, South Africa penetrating into Namibia. So the act of penetration symbolizes the colonial conquest, where both women's body and nation's border are violated. Body as history. So there's a line in the poem, I am the history of rape. Her body carries the entire record of oppression, and it's a living archive of both personal and collective trauma, right? The next is body as resistance. So, despite being targeted, her body becomes the site of rebellion. She reclaims it through speech and naming, my name is my own. So, the act of speaking about her body's violation breaks the silence and reverses power. The fifth point is language as extension of the body. So, her poetic form, which is raw, unpunctuated, and emotional, mirrors bodily resistance. Her voice is physical, which is urgent, breathless, and alive. So, you can conclude her answer by using these points. June Jordan transforms the female body, right? And from the symbol of vulnerability into one of revolutionary agency. Her body, once colonized, becomes a weapon, asserting that to exist freely is itself a radical act, right? Now, the last question for this class is examine the repetition of term wrong in the poem about my rights. पोएम में ऐसे तो बहुत सारे फ्रेजेस है, बहुत सारे वर्ड्स हैं जो रिपीट हुए, लेकिन यहाँ क्वेश्चन रॉन्ग को लेकर है. सो हेयर यू मस्ट analyze repetition as literary and thematic device. Wrong is the central word in the poem. It structures rhythm, emotion and meaning, right? So यहाँ पे कुछ key points है जो हम discuss करेंगे. So the first is repetition as emphasis. So the word wrong occurs the repetition of as emphasis. The word wrong occurs again and again, like wrong sex, wrong age, wrong skin, wrong hair, wrong continent, right? So this repetition mimics society's constant labeling of marginalized people as defective, right? So this is the impact of this emphasis of repetition as emphasis, right? Psychological impact. The constant accusation of wrongness creates internalized guilt and fear. Her identity becomes shaped by other people's definition of right and wrong, right? Irony and subversion. So, by repeating wrong, Jordan turns it into mockery, exposing how absurd and oppressive those judgments are. So, what society calls wrong, it is actually difference, not defect. और ये बात बिल्कुल सच है. अगर सोसाइटी किसी चीज़ को गलत कहती है तो उसका मतलब वो उनके अकॉर्डिंग नहीं है, ठीक है, मतलब वो डिफरेंट है, लेकिन वो हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि वो डिफेक्टिव है। रॉन्ग का मतलब डिफेक्टिव या डिस्ट्रॉयड या कुछ गलत नहीं होता है, बैड नहीं होता है। रॉन्ग का मतलब होता है डिफरेंट। जैसे मैंने आपको बोला कि सपोज़ लोग जो हैं, मान लीजिए बहुत पुराने समय में जब एक दो भाई थे, उन्होंने प्लेन कुछ, मतलब सॉरी दो भाई नहीं थे, देयर वाज अ मैन, मेरे को नाम ध्यान नहीं है, उसने एक ड्राइंग बनाई थी एयरक्राफ्ट की कि ये उड़ेगा। तो उस समय तो कोई भी व्हीकल कुछ भी उड़ नहीं पाता था, सारे व्हीकल ज़मीन पे चलते थे। तो लोगों को पता नहीं था इस बारे में, तो लोगों ने उसका बहुत मजाक बनाया और उसको सबने उसके आइडिया को रिजेक्ट कर दिया कि नहीं नहीं ऐसा कोई व्हीकल हो ही नहीं सकता। उसने ना एक एयरक्राफ्ट का फ़ोटो बनाया था, पेंसिल स्केच बनाया था कि ये आसमान में उड़ेगा। अब बना तो वो नहीं पाया था, लेकिन और उससे पहले किसी ने देखा भी नहीं था। तो जब किसी ने देखा ही नहीं था एयरक्राफ्ट को आसमान में उड़ते हुए, तो उस उनके हिसाब से कोई ऐसी चीज़ हो ही नहीं सकती जो आसमान में उड़ सके, तो उन्होंने उसको रॉन्ग कह दिया। अब एयरक्राफ्ट तो बाद में पॉसिबल हो गया, जब टेक्नोलॉजी और बढ़ी और रिसर्च हुई, लोगों ने और मेहनत की, तो बन गया प्लेन। लेकिन उस समय जब वो अलग था, वो डिफरेंट चीज़ थी सोसाइटी को लेकर, तो लोगों ने उसे रॉन्ग कहा। तो रॉन्ग का हमेशा मतलब गलत नहीं होता है, कोई डिफेक्टिव नहीं होता है, कभी कभी डिफरेंट भी होता है। Universality of wrongness. So the term expands from gender to race to nationality, showing that the whole structure of power depends on exclusion. So being wrong becomes the experience of all the oppressed people, right? The fifth is transformation through repetition. So in the final lines, she reclaims it. I am not wrong. Wrong is not my name. So the word that was used to define her is now rejected and redefined. So the repetition turns from accusation to self-awareness, from self-awareness to empowerment. So you can conclude this answer by using these points, and you can write the repetition of wrong is both rhythmic refrain and moral protest. It exposes how oppression works through language and how language can be turned against oppression. Right, so Jordan's repetition of wrong becomes the heartbeat of the poem, from shame to survival, from identity to reduction. Right, so ये लास्ट क्वेश्चन था, इसके बाद क्लास ख़त्म हो गई है. सो एज वी हैव कंक्लूड टुडेज डिस्कशन, let us remember that June Jordan's poem About My Rights is not merely a literary work. It's a manifesto of truth, resistance, and self definition. Through her unpunctuated lines and unrestrained voice, right? Jordan redefines poetry as a space, where language fights back. So where silence breaks and where identity becomes power. So in every repetition of the word wrong, we hear centuries of oppression, but also the echoes of defiance. So her poetry teaches us that it the form itself can be rebellion, and that the act of writing, so reading or even then understanding such poetry is a part of larger struggle for justice and human dignity. As students and readers, may we learn to see literature not as words on a page, right, but as a living force that questions, that heals, and liberates. So, if you found this discussion insightful, helpful, so please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and classmates, and subscribe to the channel, because each lecture you engage with brings us one step closer to world where voices like June Jordan's are never silenced, and where the poetry continues to speak truth to power. So thank you for learning with me today. Keep reading, keep questioning, and above all, keep writing your truth. Thank you.